Grand Traverse County Deputies recently began a renewed push to solve a 1989 cold case. The death of Linda Meteer is one that's never been far from the minds of detectives in the county.
9 and 10's David Leiden and videographer Josh Monroe talked to investigators who are trying to find Linda's killer. The story is this month's edition of Unsolved.
Linda was down at Chum's Corners around April 19th at some bars around Chum's Corners.
It's April 19th, 1989. 41-year-old Linda Meteer is spending the night out with friends in Grand Traverse County.
They were socializing at one bar. They left that one bar and then went to one of the witnesses' homes, then went back to another bar. They were hoping to get at the bar they finally ended at to do some line dancing classes, but that had already ended, so they weren't able to do that, so they just sat and socialized at that bar. She was last seen on April 20th, leaving one of the bars. At that time it was called Spike's Peak, Northern Lights. After April 20th, she was not heard from again.
Linda's body wouldn't be discovered until the 27th by mushroom hunters in Hoosier Valley.
When the body was found on the 27th, they had no idea who it was. So at that point, law enforcement was trying to identify who this person was. I believe on April 28th, they were actually able to make an identification that it was Linda Meteer.
So she was beaten, hit multiple times.
She had a lot of blunt force trauma to her torso and some around her jaw.
Linda's death would be ruled a homicide.
They looked at the injuries, because you're talking the autopsy was done as well around the 28th. They looked at those injuries, then they started talking to some witnesses about where she was at and the fact that they hadn't heard from her for, that number of days.
Detectives formed a sizable task force to begin looking into what happened to Linda.
They started looking at where she was at that night. So they were talking to all the patrons of the bar, anybody that might have been in that bar that night, family, friends, co-workers, multiple people.
Did they say anything seemed off? Were there any arguments, anything that would have tipped them off that something was wrong or potentially going to go south for Linda that night?
When you start looking at the last couple hours of the evening, she's just at the bar with a friend and she's having a good time.
Even with dozens of interviews and a lengthy investigation, detectives were never able to successfully identify and charge a suspect.
Honestly, I think it came out there was no one that really said I did it, or anything that was pointing towards this person had a significant involvement in how she died.
Despite years of setbacks without a breakthrough, detectives believe now is the time they can solve Linda's case.
A lot of times you want to not just focus on a couple days before and a couple days afterward. You want to look what is their pattern of life. So we're kind of digging into what may have happened a year before, 6 months before, or after as well. But we're kind of looking at it from different avenues. We're looking at all the evidence that we have. We're reviewing all the reports as well. Linda was a mother of 5 at the time in 1989. She's since had a son pass away, her mother's passed away, not knowing, who killed their mother or their daughter. The family deserves to find out what happened to Linda.
If you have any information about what happened to Linda Meteer, get in touch with the Grand Traverse County Sheriff's Office. For 9 and 10 News, I'm David Leiden.
And you can listen to David's full interview with detectives in our Unsolved podcast. It's available now wherever you get your podcast.